Instead, they said, I'm unhappy and I want out. And that is not the way she ever led her life. So I think she finds it difficult to understand. But once again, there's nothing she can do about it. So she just lets it glide over her.
Instead, they said, I'm unhappy and I want out. And that is not the way she ever led her life. So, I think she finds it difficult to understand. But once again, there's nothing she can do about it. So, she just lets it glide over her. It happened in complete silence. No press release, no official announcement, no carefully crafted palace statement explaining what had just occurred behind the closed doors of Clarence's house. In the dead of night at Clarence's house, an 88-year-old princess committed an act so defiant, so calculated that it would shatter the fragile peace King Charles had fought decades to build. Princess Alexandra, the Queen Mother's beloved niece, keeper of her deepest secrets, was about to execute a plan that had been waiting in shadows for over 20 years. Picture this. A velvet box sealed with the initials QM untouched for decades, containing jewels that hadn't seen daylight since Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother passed away in 2002. And Princess Alexandra, one of the last living connections to that era of royal dignity, placing that box into the trembling hands of Catherine, Princess of Wales. But here's what makes this story absolutely explosive. Queen Camilla was completely bypassed, not consulted, not informed, not even acknowledged. The reigning queen consort of the United Kingdom, ignored like she didn't exist. Why would Princess Alexandra do something so bold, so defiant, so potentially destructive? And more importantly, what was inside that velvet box that was worth risking a royal civil war? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about the royal family's carefully constructed public image. The secret prophecies, the hidden wills, the promises made in dying breaths that are finally coming to light. This isn't just about jewels. This is about legacy, loyalty, and a battle for the very soul of the British monarchy. Are you ready? Because this story goes deeper than anyone imagined. The Queen Mother's secret plan. To understand why this moment matters, we need to go back, way back to the final years of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother's life. Most people remember her as the sweet grandmother figure, always smiling, always gracious, the beloved matriarch who lived to be 101 years old. But behind that gentle exterior was a woman who understood power better than anyone. She'd survived the abdication crisis when her brother-in-law abandoned the throne for love. She'd stood beside King George V/6 through World War II when London was being bombed. She'd watched her daughter become queen and navigate decades of scandal and change. And she'd learned one crucial lesson. The monarchy's survival depends on choosing the right people to carry its legacy forward. In her final years, according to palace insiders who've spoken anonymously, the Queen Mother became increasingly concerned about the future. She watched as Diana's death fractured the family. She observed as Charles's relationship with Camilla moved from scandal to acceptance, and she made a decision that would echo through the decades. According to sources close to the royal vault, the Queen Mother amended her will in secret, not the official will that was made public, but a private codicil, a separate set of instructions for her most personal possessions. These weren't the crown jewels. These weren't state property. These were her jewels, the pieces she'd personally chosen, worn, and treasured, the symbols of her own identity as a queen consort who'd embodied dignity during Britain's darkest hours. And in that secret document, she made her intentions crystal clear. These jewels were to go to the future queen who embodied grace, not ambition, dignity, not desperation for relevance. She never named Camilla. She didn't have to. The exclusion was deliberate and devastating. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Queen Mother didn't just write instructions. She created a prophecy. One palace insider speaking on condition of complete anonymity revealed she wrote about the Queen of Silent Strength who would one day restore the monarchy's moral compass. She described this woman in such specific detail that when Catherine entered the family years later, Princess Alexandra immediately recognized her as the one the Queen Mother had foreseen. That's right. The Queen Mother may have predicted Catherine's arrival before Prince William had even proposed. Impossible? Or the uncanny intuition of a woman who'd spent nearly a century observing royal dynamics and understanding what truly makes a queen. Princess Alexandra, the guardian of secrets. Now, let's talk about the woman who became the executive of this prophecy. Princess Alexandra. If you're not familiar with her, that's exactly how she prefers it. Princess Alexandra, the Honourable Lady Ogilvy, is now 88 years old. She's the Queen's cousin, the daughter of Prince George, Duke of Kent, and Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark. More importantly, she was the Queen Mother's beloved niece and confidant. While other royals courted publicity, Alexandra embodied the old-school royal values: discretion, duty, and unwavering loyalty to the crown. She's performed thousands of royal engagements over her lifetime, never seeking headlines, never causing scandals, simply serving. And it was to Alexandra that the Queen Mother entrusted her most sacred secret. According to those who know her, Alexandra has been carrying this burden for over 2 decades, waiting, watching, looking for the sign that would tell her the time had come to fulfill her aunt's dying wish. That sign came when she observed Catherine. Not the Catherine of tabloid headlines or public appearances, but the Catherine who endured years of weighty mockery with quiet dignity. The Catherine who suffered intense media scrutiny and never retaliated. The Catherine who married into the most famous family in the world and somehow retained her authenticity. Alexandra saw in Catherine exactly what the Queen Mother had described, a woman whose strength came from grace, not grandstanding. And so on a night that will go down in royal history, Alexandra made her move. The secret meeting that changed everything. Let me take you inside what reportedly happened that night at Clarence's house. It was late, past 10 o'clock p.m. Most palace staff had gone home. The official logbooks would later show no record of any meeting, no scheduled appointments, no visitors. But Alexandra arrived unannounced, carrying a box that had been locked in her personal safe for over 20 years. Catherine was there alone. No aides, no security detail inside the room. No William, just her. Some say the meeting had been arranged through secret channels, a coded message passed through trusted intermediaries. Others believe Alexandra simply showed up, knowing Catherine would understand the significance of an unexpected visit from a senior royal at such an unusual hour. What happened next would change the course of royal history. Alexandra placed the velvet box on the table between them. The box itself was a work of art. Deep burgundy velvet, brass hinges that had tarnished with age, and those 2 letters embossed in faded gold. QM. These belong to you, Alexandra reportedly said. Not asked, stated. Catherine, according to those who later heard her account, was speechless. She knew immediately what this meant, the weight of it, the implications. I can't. Catherine supposedly replied. These should go to. They go where she intended them to go, Alexandra interrupted, her voice carrying the authority of her 88 years and unshakable conviction. Not where protocol dictates where she intended. And then Alexandra opened the box. What was inside more than just jewels? Inside that velvet box lay history itself. The primary piece was immediately recognizable to anyone who studied royal history. The Queen Mother's guardian brooch. This wasn't just any brooch. This was the piece the Queen Mother wore at Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. The piece she wore during her most significant public appearances. The piece that in royal symbolism represented her role as the spiritual guardian of the monarchy's values. It had been missing from public view since her death. Royal watchers had assumed it had been incorporated into the crown's collection or perhaps stored in the royal vault. They were wrong. Alexandra had been guarding it all along. But that wasn't all. Sources later revealed the box also held a strand of pearls the Queen Mother wore at her final public appearance. A pair of diamond earrings gifted by King George V, a sapphire ring once owned by Queen Mary. And most striking, a folded piece of parchment sealed in wax. That piece of parchment is what elevated this from a generous gift to an earth-shattering revelation. The letter that changed everything, written in the Queen Mother's own elegant handwriting on paper that had yellowed with age, was a message that left Catherine in tears. To the future queen who wears grace, not pride. These jewels represent not wealth, but worth, not power, but principle. They have been worn by women who understood that service to the crown means surrendering oneself to something greater than ambition. If you are reading this, it means you have been chosen. Not by me, though I hoped and prayed for someone like you, but by your own character, by your willingness to endure without bitterness, to serve without seeking glory, to love without losing yourself. Wear these not as ornaments, but as reminders. The monarchy's strength has never come from those who demand respect, but from those who earn it through quiet dignity. Guard the crown's conscience. That is the truest role of a queen. It was signed simply Elizabeth Regina. The Queen Mother's signature. Catherine reportedly read it 3 times, her hands shaking. Alexandra watched in silence, allowing the weight of the moment to settle. She knew, Catherine finally whispered. How did she know? She always knew, Alexandra replied. She understood that the crown would eventually need someone who could restore what had been lost. Dignity, moral authority, the people's trust, and there it was, spoken aloud. The implication that hung in the air like smoke. The Queen Mother believed Camilla would never possess these qualities, and she'd created a plan to ensure the monarchy's moral legacy bypassed her entirely. When Camilla found out, fury behind palace walls. News of the transfer didn't stay secret for long. In the interconnected world of royal households, gossip travels faster than official memos. Within 48 hours, someone, whether a staff member or a courtier with divided loyalties, informed Queen Camilla about what had occurred at Clarence's house. And according to multiple palace sources, she absolutely exploded. Staff who were present during the aftermath describe a level of fury they'd never witnessed from her before. Camilla has spent decades developing a reputation for being unflappable, for rolling with punches, for maintaining composure even when attacked by the press. But this broke her because this wasn't media speculation or public criticism. This was the royal family itself, or rather its revered matriarch speaking from beyond the grave, declaring that Camilla was unworthy of carrying the moral legacy of the crown. One source described the scene. She locked herself in her private study for hours. You could hear her voice through the door. Not words, just the sound of someone who'd been struck at the deepest level. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red. Her face was set and she wouldn't speak to anyone, not even the king. Camilla's closest aides tried to contextualize it to minimize its significance. They are just jewels. One reportedly told her, personal items with sentimental value, nothing more. But Camilla understood what they refused to say aloud. This wasn't about jewelry. This was about judgment. The Queen Mother, beloved by the British public, revered within the royal family, seen as the moral conscience of the monarchy, had looked at Camilla and found her wanting, had looked ahead and chosen Catherine instead, and there was nothing Camilla could do about it. The king's impossible position. King Charles III found himself trapped in a nightmare of competing loyalties. On one side, his wife, the woman he'd loved for decades, thought to be with, and eventually married despite enormous public opposition, the woman who'd stood by him when he was the most unpopular royal in Britain. Now, humiliated by his own mother's posthumous rejection, on the other side, his mother's wishes. The Queen Mother's clearly stated intentions and his daughter-in-law Catherine who'd done nothing wrong except be chosen by history itself and caught in the middle. His own mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who would have known about this arrangement and said nothing. Palace insiders report that Charles was devastated when he learned the full story. Not angry, devastated. He'd spent his entire life trying to honor his family's legacy while also choosing his own path, trying to modernize the monarchy while respecting tradition, trying to protect Camilla while serving the crown. And now his own mother through her mother had undermined all of that with a single posthumous gesture. One senior courtier speaking anonymously described a private conversation. The king said, "She's still making decisions from the grave. When does it end? When do we get to define this monarchy without ghosts dictating terms?" But Charles also understood the brutal political reality. He couldn't undo this without looking like he was overriding his grandmother's wishes to protect his wife's feelings. The optics would be disastrous. The public loved the Queen Mother. They increasingly loved Catherine. And Camilla, despite years of rehabilitation, still carried the baggage of being the other woman who broke up Charles and Diana's marriage. If Charles tried to reclaim those jewels, he wouldn't be seen as defending his wife. He'd be seen as attacking his grandmother's legacy and Catherine's dignity. So, he made the most royal decision possible. He said and did nothing. Not out of strength, but out of strategic paralysis. Sometimes in monarchy, the safest choice is silence. Prince William's calculated response. While Charles struggled with indecision, Prince William took action. William has always been protective of Catherine. He watched her endure years of brutal media scrutiny before they married. He saw her vilified during their brief breakup. He witnessed her navigate the impossible pressure of marrying into his family with grace and strength. And he was not about to let anyone, including his stepmother, make Catherine feel guilty for receiving what was rightfully hers. According to palace sources, William had a private meeting with his father. The conversation was described as frank but respectful. William reportedly made several points. First, these jewels were never Camilla's to receive. They were personal property specifically designated for someone the Queen Mother believed embodied her values. That's Catherine. Denying that would be rewriting history. Second, Catherine didn't ask for this. She didn't scheme or manipulate. Alexandra came to her because she fulfilled a prophecy made before Catherine even entered our family. If anything, this proves Catherine's character. Third, if we try to undo this, we look like we're ashamed of our own grandmother's judgment. We'd be saying the Queen Mother was wrong. Is that really the message we want to send? Fourth, and most devastatingly, some things were never yours to give, Father, and therefore not yours to take away. That last line reportedly left Charles speechless. William wasn't challenging his father's authority as king. He was simply stating a truth that Charles himself understood but couldn't bring himself to accept. This decision had been made long before Charles wore the crown, and it was beyond his power to reverse. William's intervention was calculated and brilliant. By framing the situation as respecting the Queen Mother's wishes rather than taking sides between Catherine and Camilla, he gave his father a way to accept the situation without feeling he'd betrayed his wife. But make no mistake, William had chosen Catherine publicly, definitively in a way that sent a clear message about who the future of the monarchy belonged to. The public debut. When Catherine wore the brooch for weeks after receiving the jewels. Catherine kept them private. She understood the explosive nature of what had happened and was cautious about how to handle it. But eventually the moment came. At a small charity event for children's welfare, not a major state occasion, not a televised ceremony, Catherine appeared wearing the Queen Mother's guardian brooch. And the world stopped. An amateur photographer captured the moment. The image was shared on social media. Within hours, royal watchers had identified the brooch and understood its significance. The headlines wrote themselves, Catherine wears Queen Mother's personal jewels. The brooch that bypassed Camilla, Queen Mother's legacy, Catherine chosen over Camilla. The return of royal grace. Catherine honors Queen Mother. The palace remained silent, which only intensified speculation. Catherine herself said nothing about the brooch, treating it as a normal accessory rather than the explosive statement it represented. But everyone understood what she was doing. Catherine was accepting the mantle, not arrogantly, not with fanfare, but with quiet acknowledgement that she carried the Queen Mother's blessing. The public reaction was overwhelming. British polling showed 71% approved of Catherine receiving the jewels. Just 12% thought Camilla should have been included, and 68% said it proved Catherine was the rightful heir to the Queen Mother's legacy. While social media buzzed with side-by-side images of Catherine wearing the brooch and the Queen Mother at Elizabeth II's coronation, one commentator wrote, in one simple gesture, Catherine has reminded us what the monarchy is supposed to be, not about power or position, but about character and service. The Queen Mother saw that in her, and now we see it, too. Camilla's retreat, the Queen Consort in shadow. In the weeks and months following this revelation, a noticeable change occurred in Queen Camilla's public presence. She didn't stop performing duties. She didn't make any dramatic statements. She simply diminished. Staff noticed she spent more time alone. She declined several high-profile events, citing minor health concerns. Her public appearances became more subdued, less confident. Friends close to Camilla, speaking anonymously, paint a picture of a woman deeply hurt but trying to maintain dignity. She feels like she's been judged by history and found wanting, not by the public, not by the press, but by the family itself, by the women who came before her. And there's no appeal, no way to change that verdict. It's final. The jewel situation became a metaphor for Camilla's entire journey. Always close to the center of power, but never quite fully accepted, always present, but never quite belonging. One particularly poignant moment reportedly occurred during a private family gathering. Catherine was wearing a different piece from the Queen Mother's collection, a simple strand of pearls. Camilla's eyes locked on them for just a moment. Then she looked away. No words were exchanged, but everyone in the room felt the weight of that glance. What this means for the future of the monarchy becomes clearer when we step back and look at what this story really tells us about the royal family and where it's headed. First, the past still controls the present. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, died in 2002, over 20 years ago. Yet her wishes, her judgments, her prophecies still shape royal dynamics today. The monarchy isn't just bound by current traditions. It's haunted by the expectations of those who came before. Second, character still matters more than position. Camilla holds the official title of Queen Consort, but the moral authority, the spiritual legitimacy, the public's genuine affection, those went to Catherine, and no amount of official positioning can change that. Third, the monarchy is essentially two institutions. There's the formal constitutional monarchy, the one of state dinners and official duties. And there's the symbolic moral monarchy, the one that exists in people's hearts and minds. Catherine now dominates the latter even while Camilla occupies the former. Fourth, Princess Alexandra's role reveals a hidden power structure. Senior royals, even those outside the direct line of succession, can shape the monarchy's direction through their moral authority and their connection to history. Alexandra wielded more power through that velvet box than many working royals exercise through decades of official duties. Fifth, this isn't about Camilla versus Catherine. It's about what the monarchy represents. The Queen Mother believed in a vision of royalty rooted in moral exemplarship, that royals should embody the best virtues of the nation, not just perform ceremonial functions. By choosing Catherine, she was trying to ensure that vision survived. But our story doesn't end here. Because while we know about the jewels that were transferred, palace watchers are asking a much bigger question: what else did the Queen Mother leave behind? Remember those sealed boxes in the royal vault marked only with QM? The ones no one has dared open without explicit royal permission. Rumors still swirl that the box hides more than personal trinkets. Royal historians speculate it could contain extra letters detailing the Queen Mother's vision for the monarchy's future, private diaries with her candid observations of family members, specific directives on how certain traditions should evolve, and maybe even clues about who she thought should or shouldn't inherit the crown's legacy. Princess Alexandra knows what's in those boxes. She's hinted as much in private conversations, but she's not talking. Not yet. The question is, when will the next revelation come? What other prophecies did the Queen Mother leave behind? And who else might be named or excluded in her final wishes? We began this story with a simple act, one elderly princess handing a box of jewels to a younger one. But as we've discovered, nothing in the royal family is ever simple. What looked like a generous gift was actually the fulfillment of a decades-old prophecy. What seemed like a family heirloom transfer was actually a judgment rendered from beyond the grave. What appeared to be about jewelry was actually about the very soul of the British monarchy. Princess Alexandra took an enormous risk by following through on the Queen Mother's wishes. She could have kept those jewels locked away forever, avoided the drama, let the secret die with her. But she chose to honor her aunt's trust, to fulfill a promise made in dying breaths, to ensure that the Queen Mother's vision for the monarchy's future was realized. Catherine accepted that burden with the grace that defined her selection in the first place. She didn't seek this recognition. She didn't campaign for it. She simply lived in a way that fulfilled a prophecy she didn't even know existed. And Camilla, she's learning the hardest lesson anyone in the royal family must eventually learn. Position can be granted by marriage or by title. But legitimacy, true, deep moral legitimacy, can only be earned through character. And once lost, it can never quite be reclaimed. King Charles remains caught between the woman he loves and the legacy he inherited. There's no easy resolution, no perfect answer. But here's what we know for certain: the Queen Mother is still shaping the monarchy from beyond the grave. Her voice, her values, her vision, they echo through every room in every palace. They influence every decision, every succession plan, every quiet conversation about the crown's future. And through Princess Alexandra's courage and Catherine's grace, that vision has been reborn. So, I want to hear from you. Do you think Princess Alexandra was right to bypass Camilla and give the jewels to Catherine, or should she have followed official protocol regardless of the Queen Mother's personal wishes? And the bigger question, should the dead be allowed to control the living? Or do past royals' wishes deserve to be honored no matter how much time passes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And tell me, if you were King Charles, what would you do? Would you try to reclaim the jewels to protect your wife's dignity, or would you let history take its course, even if it means your wife is forever defined by this exclusion? Because this story is about more than royalty. It's about family. It's about loyalty. It's about whether we honor the wishes of those who came before us, even when doing so causes pain in the present. And those are questions every family, royal or not, must eventually answer. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful legacies aren't the ones we inherit through bloodline. They are the ones we earn through character. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this unfolding royal saga. Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's this: the Queen Mother's secrets are far from finished revealing themselves. The monarchy will never be the same. And the story, it's only just